Welcome everyone today. I'm President Garcia Morales, and I call this regular work session of December 4th to order. The time is 4:02 p.m. I'd like to remind everybody to please silence their electronic devices. We acknowledge the land on which we gather is the territorial homelands of the Nuwu, the Mawapa Band of Paiutes, and the Las Vegas Band of Paiutes. We'll go ahead and turn it over to Trustee Satori, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Johnson, who will help us make the motion to approve the agenda.
Madam President, members of the board, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Trustee Bustamante Adams?
I second that motion.
Thank you. Colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Johnson, a second by Trustee Bustamante Adams. Please cast your vote. Thank you, colleagues. The motion passes 6-0. Okay, I'm actually going to use this opportunity to colleagues, with your permission, I'd like to move item 2.03. I'd like to rearrange the agenda and begin with item 2.03, followed by 2.01, and then 2.02. 2.03 is the construction of item reconsideration of item 2.05, amended Earl B. Lundy Elementary School from August 7th, 2004. This is the amended agenda work session item. Okay, I don't see, thank you for that. I do want to, allow me one moment while I pull up my notes. Okay, thank you, colleagues. So we are going to go ahead and begin with that item. This item, if you remember correctly, is we're here to discuss and take possible action regarding the next steps pertaining to Earl B. Lundy Elementary School. This item was placed on the agenda for reconsideration by Trustee Nakia Jackson Hale, pursuant to Governance Policy 4.214F. which provides that within the first 3 months of being sworn in, a board member with voting rights. It's okay, it's okay. You can just jam out. Good intermission. All right, I'll start there. Let's see. This item was placed on the agenda for reconsideration by Trustee Nakia Jackson Hill, pursuant to Governance Policy 4.214F, which provides that within the first 3 months of being sworn in, a board member with voting rights may request reconsideration of a prior decision up to 6 months prior to being sworn into the board. In addition, we have attached Trustee Jackson Hill's email request as referenced material for this item. Prior to opening this item for discussion, I'd like to review the order of events that occurred during the previous board meetings. Okay? On June 27th, at the regular board meeting, there was an agenda item regarding a public hearing on the recommendation to close Earl B. Lundy Elementary School. At the same time, on June 27th, there was an agenda item regarding the discussion and possible action on approval of the recommendation to close Earl B. Lundy School effective June 30th, 2024, and zoning to reassign students in kindergarten to grade 5 living in the areas as described from Earl B. Lundy Elementary School to Indian Springs Elementary School beginning for the 24-25 school year. Okay, this motion failed and no action was taken on the agenda item. Then, fast forward to August 7th, at the board meeting work session, there was an agenda item on the discussion and possible action regarding the next steps pertaining to Earl B. Lundy Elementary School. A motion was made there to direct the interim superintendent to request a design-build process with the exploratory library option, and motion passed in a 4-3 vote. Okay. On November 12th, a written request was submitted by Trustee Jackson Hill to reconsider the vote taken on August 7th. Okay. Please note that this item is not to consider the closing of Earl B. Lundy Elementary School, as that motion failed on June 27th, 2024, and was not the motion made on August 7th, 2024. Again, this item is to discuss and take possible action regarding the next steps pertaining to Earl B. Lundy Elementary School. Okay. Before I open it up to discussion, Interim Superintendent, do we have a brief update on Lundy? No. Yes. No. Okay, no. We can jump in straight into discussion. Forgive me. Thank you. I'm getting my wires crossed. Appreciate you. I actually, before I open it up to discussion by Trustee Jackson Hill, as this agenda item was her request, colleagues, and given this is an action item, we will need to take public comment on it. And as of now, let's see, do I have public comment on this item? So if there are members of the audience who would like to submit public comment or would like to provide public comment on this item and haven't done so already, please submit your yellow public speaker cards. Otherwise, once we begin discussing, we will not be taking any more cards. Thank you. Yes, sir. Do you mean that you submitted a yellow card, or did you call in advance?
Yeah, we have that. Yeah. No, we have it.
What's your name, sir? Oh, thank you. Joe will make sure that you're taken care of. Thank you so much. Oh, super. Thank you, everyone. Teamwork. Teamwork. Okay. All right. Trustee Jackson Hill, I'll turn it over to you for a moment to share why you chose to bring this item. If there's anything else that you'd like to share about bringing this item other than what I have already described, and then I'll take it back and then open it up to discussion for possible action. Trustee Jackson Hill.
Elementary schools are the most formative academic years for a child. Busing them an hour and a half each way is not the best interest of their academic, mental, and physical health. Lundy was a 5-star school. There are additional opportunities for magnet status and partnerships with BLM or forestry. There are currently only 27 magnet schools out of 308 schools in CCSD. In addition, rural schools serve as an important community resource that fosters a social, cultural, communal hub for its members. Not only do rural schools serve this function, but all schools in our community also serve this function. Schools serve as a meeting place for PTO, PTA meetings, bake sales, movie nights, parent nights, holiday gatherings, etc. One of the reasons why I brought this back is because when I was sworn in October 30th, I said that I would hit the ground running. So that first weekend after I had been sworn in, I took a trip with my husband up to Lundy for the first time. Then I was able to go up a second time and meet with the constituents. In addition, I reviewed all of the documentation that the board provided to me, and there are many discrepancies. So I looked at the detailed estimate that was provided to me, and there are items that are construction defects that are not directly related to the flood, which I think inflates the estimate that was presented to the constituents. One of the things that I asked is, when was the last assessment of Lundy? I was told August 2023. So then I had to go back and ask again, when was the last assessment prior to that? And it was in 2019. According to the policy set by the board, older schools were supposed to be evaluated every year. and that was not happening with Lundy. So there are things that were pre-existing to the flood that were included in the estimate. Second, I was told that the Clark County Building Inspector concurred with the district's findings, and I asked for that paperwork to support that, and there is no paperwork to be submitted to me. And I was given a sheet of paper for what was supposed to be a Martin Harris estimate, but it was a red line document that was submitted by the estimator, and I don't know where the red line information came from. It doesn't say Martin Harris on it. It doesn't have a name of anyone from Martin Harris, and that was submitted to me. And so those costs align with the estimator's cost with the inflation since time has gone by. So those are some of the reasons that I brought this forward. In addition, if you go up to Lundy, it looks like the classroom is frozen in time. So one of the other things that I inquired was, why have we not facilitated to get all of these personal belongings back to these children, teachers, and families? And I was told there was a process to do that. Reached out to the parents, and they said, we've not heard anything. We don't know how we're supposed to do that. So I just feel like there is a lack of empathy, compassion, communication. There's too many issues with the way that this was all handled. In addition, I went through the library meeting minutes, and they do not wish to pursue a conversation with CCSD on this partnership any further because the district has not delivered on things that they asked for specifically, and there is no district representative at their last meeting. What'd you say?
Yeah, I was agreeing that that was a meeting that the board district was trying to organize. I think that you were invited
No,
to.
that's
Yeah.
not their board meeting, their library district board meeting. There is no CCSD representative.
Okay, great. Anything else?
That's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, colleagues, before I open it up to public comment, I'm going to go ahead and take we still have to listen to we're going to listen to public comment, of course, and we have a list that we're going to go through here in a minute. But I want to take a moment to make a motion to approve item 2.05 to rebuild Lundy Elementary School with the following conditions: to fast track it ahead of all other CIP construction projects, and all uses aside from instructional use of the facility should have a rental fee associated with them. There are members of the community who have specifically asked to use this space as a gym or as a community center. And while I think that is an incredible opportunity, that the district has the ability to have a space and open it up to the community, just like we do here in different parts of like North Las Vegas, for example, there is rental fees associated with the usage of our buildings, along with needs for insurance and liability and things of that nature. So I've made a motion, colleagues, again, my motion is to approve item 2.05, rebuild Lundy Elementary, and fast track it ahead of all of other CIP construction projects in CIP 6, and ensure that any other usage that's outside of instructional use for students has the ability to be have the rental use fee associated with it. Trustee Bustamante Adams?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted for clarification, on this work session agenda, it's item 2.03, but it's for the reconsideration of item 2.05 from our previous conversation, correct?
Thank you for that clarity. Yes, it is on this agenda, 2.03, but we are, in essence, because we're reconsidering 2.05, I'm asking to approve I guess technically 2.03, which is a reconsideration of 2.05. Not confusing at all.
And so just for a point of clarification, your motion is to approve item 2.03 and put it on our top of our list.
Yes, yes, correct.
And then it also includes for our facility to charge a rental fee if other community members would like to have the usage of that, of our property.
Correct, for non-instructional usage.
Thank you. Then I would like to second that motion.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Bustamante Adams. Colleagues, we do have a motion and a second at this time. And while I will entertain discussion, I'm happy to entertain discussion, will not take a motion. I will not take an action, will not call for the vote until after we've heard from public comment, okay? So, colleagues, I'm going to go through the queue and make sure that everybody gets a chance to share at least once, and then I'll go into public comment. Does that sound fair? Yeah, great. Okay, Trustee Cavazos?
Thank you, President Garcia Morales. First of all, it's very unusual. As a former president, we don't usually, presidents make motions. And in this particular instance, on a reconsideration, it's extremely unusual to go ahead without hearing public comment or having discussion from the rest of the trustees to even make a motion. And that motion was rather lengthy, had a lot of details to it. I was trying to take notes, but I did not capture all of it. And it sounds like maybe this was like worked out ahead of time, and I'm in admiration of Trustee Bustamante Adams if she was able to follow all that and get all those details. But I think that we are doing, as far as doing a disservice, as far as jumping into that kind of protocol without hearing the public comment and then having the discussion. I realize that as a president, you do have that discretion to make that motion, but that was a fairly complex motion with a very complex issue here. So I just wanted to state that I feel that that is something that maybe is not in the best interest of the trustee who brought back this item and in the interest of the many community members that I see here to speak on that motion. Thank you.
Trustee Guzman? Oh, give me 1 second. Trustee Barron, forgive me, I took you off the queue. Can you jump back on? And then I will turn on your mic. Oh, there we go.
Yes. Well, quite frankly, I know if I had a vote, I know exactly what I'd be doing. I'd be voting most definitely for this reconsideration. However, with all respect, I don't see any supporting documents that actually support your motion. I'm all for, actually providing a public school as we had before at Mount Charleston. On the other hand, there are still some other questions we have to resolve other than just, blanket saying we're ready to go here. As I understand, for instance, the school district got an insurance settlement for having this building that was damaged. I don't know where that money went. Then all of a sudden, as I understand, we have a really high bid here for the repair. And I would hate for this board to actually just accept that bid that's really, really high to rebuild this building based upon the desire to have, and believe me, I'm the first person here to definitely want every person in this county, every family to have access to a public school. But I do not think it is within the scope of this subject here to just blanket say we're going to go ahead and rebuild this building at all costs, because that's what I'm hearing. Again, I have also seen the supposed estimate there that's in red. I don't know, maybe Donald Trump did that. I guess he was really he was pretty good with markers, in the path of hurricanes here. We have no idea what that red estimate was, right? And I would like to get a real, some real bids on some realistic bids on the reconstruction of this building. And I will just point out, if we got an insurance settlement for a certain amount, and all of a sudden the rebuild estimate is much higher, If there's a gap there, the public should not have to be put at the contractor's whim there. The public should not be under the contractor's boot. I am all for the reconsideration, and I would definitely be in favor of the colleagues here who are voting to definitely reconsider and make a motion to rebuild, to definitely reopen Lundy. But I don't think, I would not be, I think it'd be prudent as a member of this board to put a little bit of a break here and for us to actually be very careful as to what we're actually approving. Again, definitely rebuild Lundy, right? But there's an issue of cost, and I do believe that there is a price that we can pay to reopen Lundy, but I don't think we just write a blank check. That is putting, I think, the people here of this district at a disadvantage. And we're here as more than anything else to be good people in charge of the public trust.
Trustee Guzman?
Thank you, President Garcia Morales. I've thought about this, and I think that although I agree that we need to move Lundy up in the SIP, I think we need to hear all the information. So I went up to Lundy, and I spoke with the community, and I let them know they had their plan, and we had our plan, and the plans were not coming together. And so I made sure that I clarified that there wasn't really a plan per se that we could all agree on, so we would investigate all of them. One was with the library district, and adding on to the actual room where we were sitting and creating classrooms. The other was looking at other options that we had, but we were going to wait until we could find out how safe Lundy was to rebuild. And I don't believe that that has come back to the board. And so I am confused because I felt like I was working with the community and with the district, trying to make sure that something did happen. And I am confused about the fact that we did not get support materials that were aligned with the conversation that the district had with the community so that we could see where we were. If there is information about the library district, if there's information about where we are with safety, I think that should be brought to us because we can rebuild, but is it safe to rebuild on that particular property, or do we need to move Lundy? You know, those types of things, we haven't been presented with any of that. And I don't want to vote on something that I don't have all the information that even the community has asked for. And so that we can work together. I think part of the reason why there has been such a highlight on it is because they feel we're hiding something. I don't think we're hiding anything, but they feel we are. And so I would like to just stay, and I am looking forward to public comment because I didn't get a chance to go up the mountain this last time with the trustee, but I would like to know where they feel we are because I don't even know, and I just I'm surprised at the motion. I want to be clear, I was sitting here while you were writing it up. It was not pre-written. So I know this was a spur of the moment. And so I feel like there's like a thought process that maybe I'm missing, and I would hope that you would share that with us.
Thank you. Trustee Esparza-Stoffagan?
I too am very concerned about the lack of the community having voice right now. So I would like to move that we could hear public comment and stop this discussion, because I feel that there's a lot of lack of information. And the fact that President Garcia Morales, you voted to not repair Lundy, and now you're choosing to make the motion without us hearing from the community is very concerning to me as a trustee. So I'm going to move that we have and listen to public comment at this time, is my will and wish.
Thank you. Trustee Jackson-Hill, have you shared? You have not. Come on in.
That was a motion.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to kind of make a comment to Trustee Barone. So he had some questions about the insurance money. So CCSD was paid $1.5 million for repairs of Lundy. So they were also instructed that they had 90 days to come back to ask for additional money if those repairs were going to be more than $1.5 million. The district did not do that. In addition, there was all kinds of federal funds and state funds for this disaster that were available that were not requested either. Lundy has been closed for 2 years. In addition, they had over $500,000 in rollover, with an additional $750,000 left over from the insurance. So there's $3.5 million that would have been available to do these repairs. And I just want to read a statement from one of the structural engineers to Ethos 3. It says, in our professional opinion, the main structure may be occupied when the temporary measures of supporting the storage room are completed. So that's from the exact documentation that was provided to me from the district. So I just wanted to make sure that I was able to get that on record before we go to public comment.
Thank you. Dr. Larson-Mitchell?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. For the record, Brenda Larson-Mitchell. Staff is here ready to address any questions that the board may have. So I don't know if the pleasure of the board is to do public comment or if there are questions for staff, but we are here to address questions if needed.
We typically ask staff to provide, we hear from staff first and then we turn to public comment. So I see one more member in the queue. I'm going to allow them to please share, and then we'll turn it over to staff. Dr. Larson-Mitchell, is that okay? Yeah, thank you. Trustee Zamora?
Thank you. So I've been, the past few months, every meeting, we usually, when it's an action item, and Irene, Trustee Bustamante Adams can testify, but I'm always making sure we're doing public comment before we do discussion. So I know members kept mentioning that, so I hope that after public comment, we can continue doing discussion. And questions, please, if I can just get that commitment, because I will probably have more questions after the public comment period. But during that time, as we're listening to public comment, is there a way that staff can prepare a quick brief of that library meeting that happened? Because it was during the same time and the same day we had a board meeting here. So none of us were able to tune in or attend the meeting, so can they work on just a quick summary of what the conversation was? Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Zamora. And thank you, staff. If you can please come on up. Thank you, Dr. Larson-Mitchell. I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Johnson.
I just wanted to ask us, I know over the past at least 2 meetings where we've been, and I'll qualify this first. I do want to hear public comment. I want to make sure we have the opportunity for discussion. I want to make sure that we get an opportunity to hear all these facts. And in the last 2 meetings we've had large decisions to make, and we've stopped short of making said decisions because we said we don't want to make said decisions in a space where we're going to have 57% of the board turnover in 90 days. And so how is this situation different than any of those others? Again, not to say that the discussion shouldn't happen, not to say we shouldn't be doing information gathering, but the action portion feels very similar to all the other action portions that we've had for the last month and a half, or at least 30 days since we've learned that we're going to have a new composition. And so I just want us to keep that in consideration. Maybe it's different. I would like for somebody to help me understand how this situation's different than others, given we're going to make a large-scale decision with 4 new people who are going to come and then have to engage with those parts. And that is not to say that we shouldn't. I'm seeking to understand versus saying that we shouldn't do something.
Yeah, thank you. I'll work on addressing that. Thank you, Trustee Johnson. It's the right of new members, and in this case, Trustee Jackson Hale is a new member to the board to bring back an item for discussion. And I have, those of us who have been on the board since this item came to us, and even before those, those of us who have been on the board even before last year, before this discussion even took place, we were made aware of the challenges in Lundy. So this is now a 2-year discussion. This has turned from one event that destroyed Mount Charleston, Lundy Elementary School's foundation and uprooted the school community, and now has turned into a 2-year discussion. And really, my desire to bring this back, my support in bringing this back, one, it was based on policy, and Trustee Jackson Hale has a right to do that. The new composition has a right to bring this item back, and we can be in a perpetual forever hold if we want to be. But I've heard this board consistently talk about the need to create a cleared path for the new body starting in the new year, and we have an opportunity, a really unique opportunity, to close a chapter that has been ongoing, that would support ultimately students, it would support our community at large, and also support the people who have to navigate this work, whether it's the new members or existing members. This is not, the community has already shared they don't want the library. They've shared it with us over and over and over. They don't want the library. So we have a decision to make. And for me, bringing this back felt like such a, in support of this item, and I'll share this, that a couple of meetings ago, we were asked, a question was asked, how much is $10 million out of our budget? It's like 0.02%. There was a couple of members who were in an uproar about our $10 million deficit to this central budget that was turned like a mountain into a molehill. And respectfully, I see $6 million as a significant amount of money that will certainly impact, especially our schools in the community that I represent, all of the school district. But the community has already come to us on multiple occasions, on multiple meetings, like when are we going to listen to them? And despite our best interest in providing an in-between or a best solution in the middle, it hasn't worked. And we have the choice. We have a choice. So to Trustee Guzman's point, why now and why might change? It is, I'm activating my ability to choose in support of something that could bring a lot of value to our entire community. Okay. Colleagues, I'm going to turn it over to you again for questions of staff. Is there anything specific that staff? Oh, I thought, okay. Public comment first. So colleagues, I see you in the queue, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to turn it over to you. Let's start with public comment first. May I? I thought we just had one card, and my colleagues are like, no, we have multiple cards. So again, another testament to the resilience of the Mount Charleston community and their desire to see something different for us. So Chris Giunkiliani, you're up first. Come on up. Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. And then followed by Lydia Dominguez.
Christian Kiliani. Thank you, board members. First, thank you to Trustee Jackson Hale and soon-to-be Trustee Dominguez for taking the time to come to Mount Charleston, walk the school, look in the windows to see the teachers' materials and children's books, worksheets, and backpacks there since 2023. Thanks for this agenda item to reconsider the previous actions taken illegally by a former trustee and some fellow trustees who colluded to cover up living out of state. We do appreciate you listening. We are once again asking for equity and fairness. Our students are discriminated against and taken advantage of by the past and current administration. They used a once-in-a-lifetime disaster to punish our children and community. We've encountered misinformation, incomplete FOIAs, partial documentation, and outright lies regarding Lundy and its repair needs. We are asking that the building be immediately reopened and access provided to trustees, first responders, bond oversight committee members, community, and former teachers. The building is not structurally unsafe. You paid $125,000 for a report done September 23rd of 2023, and Wright's engineers on page 53 said that it was structurally sound. Yet after we testified in May, your staff internally went up and posted a handwritten notice on that the building was unsafe. Staff devised this scheme, and the interim superintendent unfortunately went along with it and refused to go into the building. We are asking that necessary work permits, including septic and leach field, be drawn up internally along with the Forest Service guidance and applied for its SNHD in January. We are also asking that Lundy initially be made a pre-K-5 school. There's already an extra classroom. We are asking that the septic system tank be increased in the application to 3,000 to 8,000 tank for future opportunities. I can buy one at Lowe's, Home Depot, and for about $12,000. In your insurance, you were reimbursed $125,847.70. You have the money. We ask that as much work that is being done now, recognizing the constraints in the winter months. The power has been on since last year. The water pipes have been flushed by the water district. This is not about the money. You have $1.5 million that you had from the insurance. You had $1.4 million to put together towards building 2 classrooms to the library district, and money in CIP and reserves. Oh, by the way, I was at the library trustee meeting. They were never consulted as a board of trustees before CCSD put this on as an agenda item to vote on to say, let's build classrooms. How disrespectful is that? They are not interested. So that's off the table. We are asking that money originally allocated to Lundy be used as needed. We are asking that work permits be done in-house and that small contractors be used, not Martin Harris or Penta. We have engineers and contractors that live on the mountain that have offered to help. Allow the community to come in and paint and clean. There is no damage inside the facility. None. Your liability would cover us being able to help. First, I'm also personally asking that you not appoint a principal to oversee Lundy. Go back to paying for an extra dollars for a responsible teacher on site and assure that the SOT actually meets on the mountain because they were never allowed to. Give
Thank you, Chris.
Give
Lydia?
the best Christmas present
Chris,
you can.
thank you, Chris. Lydia, go ahead, please. Chris, we hear you. Thank you. Lydia, if you can turn on your mic. Thank you.
There we go. Never been on this side. Madam President, Board of Trustees. Oh, I get a chair.
Well, Lydia, while you set up, thank you. Donna Thompson will be next, followed by Katie Corin. Please set yourselves up.
Thank you. As a previous AZAC member, there's such a process that is followed here, and the AZAC process was completely missed for Lundy. They should have had the opportunity, the parents here should have had the opportunity to decide whether they wanted to go to Schirkenbach, Bilbray, or Indian Springs. And they didn't get that opportunity. Everything is just being rushed with this situation. I don't know what is with Lundy, if somebody has something against Lundy, but it really is obvious to the public that things are being hidden. There's loss of trust in the public with this situation. And the out of order process that we're having right now, the out of order with the AZAC. I mean, even what should be happening is we should be having this process come back to the board, to the new board, and we should be going through what are the damages, and be getting the new information as the trustees. I mean, I wrote this earlier today, and now it's completely different because of all of the changes that are quickly happening with all this. We should be doing bids. Why isn't that part of this questioning process? You included 2 solutions and didn't include the library. I don't know, that is exactly how lack of accountability, lack of trust, lack of transparency, these are things that we all got voted for, and it's happening right here in front of our eyes. And I know a lot of you are frustrated, but this is really, really frustrating as a community. This community depends on this facility. And even with the addendum to, or the modification to add in the fees, are these fees, where are they going towards? Are they going towards the school? Can they go towards the student club? Are they going, like, what? There were no previous fees, I'm assuming, and now if you do add fees in, where would that go towards, if any? This school is part of the community. These decisions is not going to be just the next year, the next 5 years. This school is for the next 50 years. This is about the next generation of kids. This is about the next generation for the community of Mount Charleston. And we're failing them by not going through the process. There is a process for a reason. I implore you to go through the process of reopening the school, going through, getting bids, figuring out what needs to be repaired from the flood and what needs to be repaired from pre-existing issues from the flood. That is what I'm hearing from the community. That's what I'm seeing with my eyeballs. When I went down to look at this facility for myself, there is a lot going on. You can see where the water was, but you can also see where it is stuck in time, where there are classrooms and you don't see water damage. I've owned properties, and it's like you can see when there is damage, and there was not. So thank you for your time.
Donna? Go ahead, and there's a button down there. Oh, it's on for you already, Donna.
I'm
You're
on?
good.
Thank you.
Donna, and then Katie on this side, please.
Good evening, Board. My name is Donna Thompson. I have been a resident of Mount Charleston for 10 years. Other than a fire, what else has a natural disaster taken place in Clark County of this magnitude? Nothing. I implore the Board to consider the fact that we deserve to have our students in our community close to home with a school that is functioning. And I do believe the differences in the amounts that are been presented, and now the outrageous amount of $6 million, it's not comparable. I don't know how that happens. We implore you as a community to take it. If this had happened anywhere in this urban area, you all would have fixed the school right now. Just because we're small, just because we're rural, just because we're way up there, doesn't mean our students don't deserve the same chance anybody down in the valley gets. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie?
We have been waiting since August of 2023. So now more than ever, we need your support. We need you to take action. Adding on to the library doesn't make a school. It would be a loss of another cherished and valuable resource on the mountain. To reiterate what Nakia said, the elementary school years are the most formative for students, laying the foundation for learning, growth, and a love of education. Yet, currently in our community, productivity and engagement are hindered when our students must wake up at 5:30 in the morning to catch a bus or drive down the mountain to Las Vegas, and they often don't return until the sun is going down after 3 o'clock. This demanding schedule affects their well-being and focus. Our school was built in 1966. The school was designed to provide consistent education for rural students in our mountain community. However, winter conditions on the highway, the primary route up and down the mountain, often make it unsafe for parents to reach bus stops. Snowed-in subdivisions and the plow often running after the early morning bus schedule lead to missed school days and chronic absenteeism. Reopening the school would allow students to walk to school even in winter, as most families live within a half-mile of the building. Our community is well prepared for winter conditions, making walking to school a safe and viable option. I did this when I was little, and it was one of those things you don't forget, but in a magical way. Having attended Lundy Elementary in the 90s, I can personally attest to its profound impact on students and the community, and it really is the heart of our community. It cultivates lifelong friendships, hosts events that bring neighbors together, creates a nurturing environment, a sense of community. It's really the big warm hug feeling of our neighborhood. This deep sense of community inspired me to move to Mount Charleston 10 years ago to raise my family. As a second-generation resident and real estate agent, I've seen families move to the mountain for the love of the mountain environment and the opportunity to send their children to a small 5-star close-knit school like Lundy. We urge you to make the necessary repairs, open the school, and give our children the chance to learn and grow close to home. Thank you.
Abraham and Taylor on this side. And after Abraham, we'll have Brenda Talley on this side and Anna Binder on this side. And please come on up if you've called your name so that we can get you set up. Thank you.
Hello, Abraham Camejo for the record. Hello, members of the trustees. I'm here in support for Lundy for the repairs. I strongly believe that the school should be open already. It took 31 months to build Allegiant Stadium. And we're still discussing elementary small school at Mount Charleston, and we can't even get the paint and get the doors open. The student belongings are still there. As a community, we're coming together. We need to reopen Lundy. We need to be able to get the district's blessing so we can have some waivers signed, so that way we can organize volunteers to go clean up Lundy. So that way we can work together, help paint it, get it open. We can build a Formula One track in 8 months on the Strip, and we can build Fontainebleau Casino in a year and a half. Bigger projects, but we're still discussing a small elementary school. We're going to have Brightline, a train from Vegas to LA, probably completed before we even can get this school done. We have the right partners. We can work together. We can talk to the union workers, have their senior apprenticeship program come and do some work, get some experience under their belt, where we can save some money on the cost and repairs of the school. I don't agree that we need to spend $6 million on this school. We need to actually do a real bid, a real estimate, put the numbers down, and roll up our sleeves and get to work. We have children at Mount Charleston that don't have a school. That's not good. I'm a father of children, my daughters. Sympathize for these parents. So let's look up solutions. Let's bring this back to the agenda. Let's figure out the funds. Let's figure out all the necessary paperwork, put it in front of the list, work together as a community and a school district, get the volunteers ready to go, and let's open the school up, work together. All I need is much.
Taylor?
Good evening, trustees. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I also had the privilege of attending Lundy Elementary School, and the memories and experiences from my time there remain some of the most special and formative of my life. Lundy is not just a school, it's a hub of our community, a place where students weren't just numbers, but individuals with names, dreams, talents, nurtured by teachers who knew each of us personally and knew our families and community members as well. A place where we all gathered to support the students, have fundraisers to support the school, where kids on the mountain could attend Parks and Rec year-round. The small class sizes allowed teachers to adapt their approach to each student, ensuring no one fell through the cracks and many excelled. This should be considered a value of this school, not a cost. I can vividly remember how my teachers recognized not just where I struggled, but where I shone, and paid personalized attention to cultivate a lifelong love of learning. It's not just a school, it's a symbol of what makes rural and small town life special, a place where education and community are intertwined, and losing it officially would not only disrupt the education of its students, but also erode a critical pillar of our community. Not only has this been my personal experience, but it's the one that I wished for my 3-year-old son, who was a pivotal part of my family's decision in moving back up to the mountain when he was just 1 year old. I wanted him to experience what that school had to offer, a place that felt safe, close to home, walkable all year round, and these are all aspects that every child deserves: equal and equitable access to learning by home, by their parents. I urge you to consider not only the numbers, but the immeasurable impact Lundy Elementary has had and will continue to have on the lives that it touches. The many kids who are under 5 in our community, whose parents had this school as one of the pivotal aspects of their decision-making to move their family to our little mountain community. So please vote to keep Lundy Elementary open so future generations can benefit from the same close-knit, enriching environment that shaped so many of us. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Brenda?
Brenda Talley, Mount Charleston resident. Thank you, Trustee Jackson Hale and Lydia Dominguez for coming, and you and all the trustees for putting this on the agenda so we had this chance for reconsideration. And I want to just point out, we are not ungrateful that you were trying to come up with a solution with the library. But when we asked about the gym, because without a gym, there's no place for them in winter, 5 months of the year for PE and recess. They would be in that classroom to eat their lunch, to do jumping jacks behind their desk for the whole day. And that was just not acceptable. I also went to the library district meeting, and I can tell you one of the questions they asked that none of us thought of, they were very upset that they hadn't seen it, that there was no one there from the district. But they said, why are they building this 2 classrooms on our property and not theirs? And I thought, well, that makes a lot of sense. Why? I don't have an answer. I just wanted to pass that on. As trustees, you all have a responsibility to the children of Clark County, and that's all children, even the children on Mount Charleston. A responsibility to ensure they all have equal access every school day and provide them an equitable opportunity for their academic success. Your mission statement says that as well, that all students progress in school, and graduate prepared to succeed and contribute in a diverse global society. All students. But our students haven't had that since the flood last year. And you might not know, because several of you were not born before 1966, but the whole reason that school was built was because of the snow and getting down to the schools in the valley. Because the plows don't run before the bus, the plows don't run before the school bell, we can't get the kids there. And that creates not only a problem with their attendance, it creates chronic absenteeism, and we know that impacts their opportunity for academic success. Kenny Gwynn in 2020 did a study on the rural schools, and what he found out, and what's in that study, that majority of those kids that come from small rural schools have a higher graduation rate, a higher advanced diploma rate, and more of them go into public office. So I think that's something to consider. At the meeting that you voted not to repair, and Brendan, I think it was McLaughlin, gave the money for the library, he also indicated it would be $7 million to demolish the school, because that would have to be taken care of. That is more than what it's going to cost to repair the school. So I think you should consider that if you demolish the school, you will have no asset, no investment. Repair the school, have that asset for years to come.
Anna Binder?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Anna Binder for the record. I want to point out we took this agenda item out of order, and so we have members from of the community from Mount Charleston have come in after you closed off time for these cards, another policy created by this board to limit participation from the community. And I know we have at least one ma'am that walked in well after and drove a long way to be here. And I would really think that it would be prudent to listen to the people who drove in almost rush hour traffic to come here and speak to you today. So that would be a wonderful ask and wonderful gift to them to give them that opportunity. When I moved here in 1991, I was 11 years old. I came from a school like Lundy. Oh boy, this is why I went to LVA, because the kids from junior high who went to Bonanza liked to beat me up every day for wearing Wranglers. You know, we had horses and lived on a ranch, and that doesn't jive with Vegas. I've only heard a few stories that some of the kids have been going through since they've been coming down into the valley, but hearing those gave me severe PTSD. I even had a Metro cop who used to have to wait at my bus stop to walk me 6 doors down because the girls would not relent. The culture is so different between the valley and the mountain. The culture is so different. As a former AZAC member as well, we heard these conversations when we were down and having to discuss Searchlight, when Searchlight was looking to rezone to Laughlin instead of Boulder City. And the families that came out in those conversations said the same exact thing that you're hearing from our mountain community. And I'll just reiterate again, you guys know that we have no other school like it in Clark County. They deserve it. They are such a wonderful addition to our community, and they deserve to raise their children in the environment in which they're choosing, right? Like I choose to live in Henderson, they choose to live in Mount Charleston, and they should have the amenities of their public school available to them for the purposes of their parental choice and raising their children in that type of environment. And please don't buy them Wranglers.
Can I go next? Can I go?
Ma'am, we just need,
Oh, my yellow card is.
thank you, staff, for supporting us in upholding policy, and appreciate that, and we will make this one exception at this
Thank
one
you.
time.
Thank
Please
you.
state your name for the record, and after you're done with public comment, submit a yellow public speaker
Oh,
card.
it's right here.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity. First of all, I'd like to say that there are two main things when we pay our taxes that are extra. For the fire department, we pay extra, and also for the school district. I'd like to know, where is that money going right now? And also, where did the money for the insurance go? And why, if you had 90 days to ask for more money, which makes sense, why didn't you ask for it? And when we bought our home, we knew the value of the school, and that to me is a positive thing, to raise the value of a home versus to have to drive in the snow an hour and a half. But also, I guess the question I have is, Clark County School District has a lot of portables. Why isn't there a portable there right now to let the kids on your property, let the kids go to school? It doesn't make sense while you wait to repair it. But I know there are portables. I know when my son went to school down here, they didn't have enough classrooms, and they brought the portables in. So where are the portables? I guess that's the question. Where are the portables? There should be portables. I'm not saying that's the solution, but there should be portables until the school is rebuilt. And structurally, I think what you said, when you build on any land, the building district requires you to do structurals, look at the ground, look at all the different components before you build or you do any repair work. And it sounds like they've done that. And it doesn't sound like it's a super structural issue. But again, I'm not a structural engineer, but the building department, they require that, and that was already done. So I guess my question again is, where are the portables? Why aren't the kids in school? Does that make sense? Okay, thank you. And again, thank you so much for letting me go.
Thank you. Colleagues, at this point in time, public comment has concluded, and we, sir?
I had no opportunity to fill out a card.
Were you here when we first began?
I was here at 3 minutes after.
Goodness gracious. Colleagues, with your permission, I will allow this gentleman, this kind sir who's approached us, to provide public comment. And members of the public, please know that we will no longer accept public comment after this gentleman provides public comment. Understood? Yeah. On this particular item. Yes, please, sir. Please state, thank you. State your name. Thank you. State your name.
Michael Thompson. resident of Mount Charleston, and I was a managing engineer for my largest project was $7 million, and I don't think that number is true. The 6.8 million. In fact, I looked at the insurance documents of 1.5 million, and I honestly think it was a little bit padded, frankly. But my intent is for you folks to consider your own legacy. The fact of the matter is, you can be a hero, and provide an opportunity, because I think you're looking the wrong direction. This school could grow to 50 students with some help, and the community is certainly in support, or the schools that follow. I know there are other small schools. I don't know very much about this community, but there are other small schools. And if you close this one, what signal do you send to the rest? And a person may say, well, if this is a five-star school because it has a small attendance. And the fact of the matter is, it's your five-star school. And isn't there something that could be learned from this? Isn't there opportunity to grow this kind of thinking? So really, I don't have much more to say other than your vote, really, you should think about your vote and your legacy, and that you can do something positive for the entire school system, because this is your five-star school. It's in your system. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Caitlin. I just want to say how much joy I'm getting from this baby in the back. And this baby is welcome to share their dissent or their enthusiasm for this item. Glad that this can be a safe place for babies too, yeah, and parents. Okay, colleagues, well, we are going to move on to discussion. I want to remind you that there is a motion on the floor. I want to thank staff in advance for all of the work that you've done to prepare this, to work through the various phases of this work for Lundy Elementary School, for the meetings, for the coordinating, for the conversations, for the follow-up that you've done between the time that we started this work and where we are today. And colleagues, at this time, we are going to engage with staff to ask them questions about, and all of these questions have already been out. Actually, we've had 3 meetings where staff have come to us and we've asked them questions about this process. These questions will especially be helpful for those members who have been on the board for a short period of time. So it is, this will be a helpful piece. I just ask for a respectful dialogue. And I don't want to be in a position, I don't think any of us want to be in a position where we have to cut each other off, because there is a lack of respect that exists in the space. And I know that's not going to happen here, because you all have a tremendous amount of respect for the work that the staff are doing here in this organization. I'm going to start with the first question, and then I'll turn it over to the colleagues in the queue. My question is specifically about the bid type. I believe this may be for Brandon. Brandon, can you please refresh our memory in terms of the type of bid that we have agreed to when we were actually with the, what bid options exist for the board if we haven't already made a decision to rebuild, when it comes to rebuilding the school? So I know that there are various bid type options, one that allows us to expedite the process and get a bid done quickly, but could you please explain those for us?
Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Brandon McLaughlin, Assistant Superintendent of Construction Development Division. For the record, I want to answer your question, and then also I do want to follow up with the recommendation of one of the trustees of some of the things we heard. Maybe we can reiterate some comments previously provided. Where we're at in the stage right now is we have not obtained any formal bids because the direction of the board has not been to obtain those formal bids. So that is the discussion to date, has always been the pleasure of the board. What would you like staff to research and bring back for you? So all of this has been estimations based upon observations, professional opinions, and that's where we're at. If the desire of the board is to repair Lundy, we would then take direction to, you could utilize design build, which we would solicit a design builder immediately. That would then come back to you as a full and final price after they conduct their actual hired investigatory work, developing a scope of work, bidding it out to subcontractors. That's track A. Track B is you could do CMAR. That's one of 3 deliverables allowable within Nevada revised statutes. I wouldn't recommend it. It's really great on complex modernizations of large scale, which we often utilize, but not, I think, advisable in this instance. But again, you would hire an architect. That would be an architectural design services item that comes before you. You would approve that. You would then approve at a later date a pre-construction contract with the CMAR partner. They would then go through a pre-construction exercise with the architects and engineers, a collaborative effort. You'd come to a construction services award, which is a guaranteed maximum price. So you'd have 3 touch bases along the way to say, hey, what's going on? That's track 2. Track 3 is the more traditional design bid build. So you could provide direction today for us to hire an architect. You would have that item come back before you to hire, in likelihood, Ethos 3 Architecture to develop 100% construction documents that we could then put out to bid. That'd be decision point number 2 within that sequence. If that number is palatable, that is a 100% accurate number, albeit reflective of change orders within the field, but there's tolerable limits within those, so 2 decision points within that 3rd track. So right now, the stage we're at, it's all estimation, and yes, there is no formal bids because that has not been the will of the board yet.
Thank you. And to be clear, to provide the staff clear direction, the current motion that I have would need to provide one of those 3 options so that they have clear direction. Although I did say fast track, so that would be design build.
Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Trustee Garcia Morales, yes, they would likely, I would recommend design build.
Yeah, got it. I'm sorry, we're not taking public comment at this time. Chris, are you, I'm sorry, excuse me, Brandon. Chris, okay, thank you. Brandon, can you please continue and go through the series of questions?
Yeah.
Anything else that you'd like to add?
Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Trustee Garcia Morales, to respond to the recommendation of why I'd say design build is also a great tool in a modernization setting. It's not exclusive for new construction. It is a way for subcontractor partners, the architects and engineers they hire directly, not having to be a separate approval process with you guys. For all one team to be under one contract, we have one sole source to say, go deliver this. That is the mechanism behind design build. It's not intended to be new only. The other overarching things I'd like to cover of things we heard to date, there was a lot of discussion about the red marked up edition of RLB's estimate. That is, in fact, Martin Harris Construction's second opinion of the cost estimate. It is not a formal bid estimate. Again, we have not been given that direction to proceed with formal bid documents or even an estimation from them. That was received on July 10th, 2024. So I'll reiterate something I stated in that about that document in the August 7th, 2024 presentation. I explained that resoundingly in the June 27th presentation to the board. The public and trustees questioned the validity of the $5.3 million construction estimate at that time. To read from what I shared in that August 7th, it was the cost estimate as part of the engineering damage assessment conducted in September, was performed by Ridner, Levitt, Bucknall, one of the most prominent independent construction cost estimating service firms in the world. They estimated at that point in time in September 2023 to be $4.5 $1.23 million with an additional $800,000 in low voltage improvements not captured in their estimate, totaling $5,357,000. So Martin Harris has a longstanding relationship with the district. They're a very good partner. And I solicited a cursory review to say, is this number valid? We wanted a industry marketplace pulse on this. Then they also did the emergency stabilization in September 2023. So we provided them the damage assessment report, the RLB estimate, and that, as the red markings you saw, was their professional courtesy review. It is not intended to be a formal estimate, but it gives us a lot more of a reflective of the marketplace pricing. Martin Harris concluded that repairs in July 2024 dollars would be approximately $6.8 million, inclusive of low voltage improvements not captured in previous estimates. That's point one I want to make sure I cover. Second point, in the initial report conducted by Ethos 3, and I am aware of what is stated in Wright Engineers' write-up on page 53, there is a line that stipulates in certain criteria, including providing main building structural drilled piers to be constructed at the corner structure, then in their professional opinion, the building, quote, may be occupied. The district did receive a letter from the structural engineer just today clarifying that statement may be occupied was predicated on the assumption that drilled piers were provided, but for a myriad of reasons, the district opted for the stabilization, the low-strength cementitious concrete to just merely prevent further damage to the building. That is not intended to be the permanent improvement. So again, his comment was predicated on if drilled piers, the permanent solution was provided, not low-strength cementitious concrete. The third item I'll hit on was, as I shared in the August 7th, 2024 presentation, that quote, on July 8th, I met on site with the Clark County School District building official, Clark County building official, and deputy building official. So brief overview, the school district had their own school building department, separate and apart from the county's building official, but we obviously tried to be a good partner with them, and we wanted to get their, again, secondary professional opinion. After a brief walkthrough of the damaged structure and later review of the engineering assessment report from September of 23, Clark County building officials concluded that the district building officials' determinations on the safety and the necessary repairs were in alignment. We have since requested that in writing, to which there has been no response yet. So we do have photos of that visit, but no written documentation has been provided, though we've requested it. Another thing I want to highlight from the August 7th, 2024 presentation is the discussion around portables. So the Mount Charleston area is known as a special condition structural region, and 100 pounds per square foot of snow loading must be engineered to be permitted in this location. From the research that's been presented to me, the school building is approximately 7,000 feet above and into the special condition structural region. So all of the portables currently owned by the district are engineered to withstand 20 to 30 pounds per square foot of snow on the roof structure. So we don't want to put students into harm's way, though sure, we could trailer a portable up there, but I don't think it would be safe, and neither does the building official. The district, further going to quote from what I shared on the 7th, the district explored the availability of portables for purchase that would have the necessary snow load for the engineering criteria met, and they do have a cost premium, but not insurmountable, but they would have to be either fabricated custom or come in from places like Colorado, Alaska, or other mountainous regions. The two other items I want to touch on is the 7 versus several. A public commenter called out that I said it was 7 million. In reviewing the tape of it, it's several million. 7 million is not the cost to demolish the existing structure. Just want to clarify that. And last but not least, the library meeting. I was in attendance as an executive leadership team member at this meeting, supporting you guys in the work that we do with numerous other construction-related items. So I was not in attendance. We did work through whether I was to attend that with the library district, and ultimately the decision was not for me to attend. Staff of the library district felt they wanted to have that discussion with their board. And so we're grateful they've had the discussion. It was not meant to be presumptive. We explored it as staff to staff with the library district, and they were merely having that conversation with their board to gain interest. But they needed to have something to develop with us, since direction provided in August, to present to their board, so it wasn't just a half-baked idea. So That's why I was not in attendance. They merely wanted to discuss it with their board.
Thank you, Brandon. All right. Yes. Let's go ahead and, Brandon, let me ask, thank you, Trustee Jackson Hill. Allow me one second. Trustee Jackson Hill asked about the insurance questions regarding the insurance. Dr. Larson Mitchell, who would be able to help us with that? And we can go down the list. Go ahead.
Madam President, members of the board, Ms. Crumland is here from Risk Management.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Kim Crumland for the record. I'm the Director of Risk Management. Forgive me, there were a lot of questions about the insurance. I don't know if it would be easiest just to explain the actual process that we go through. So the moment that we have any kind of damage to any of our buildings, we involve our property carrier if it's going to be over our deductible. They were involved. They visited the site within a week of the damage. We worked with FEMA. We worked with the county and other partners to see what other funding would be available. Unfortunately, we did not qualify for FEMA funding because we were not going to have damage at the level that FEMA would get involved. So therefore, we had to go back to our insurance carrier and have them do a complete estimate of repairs. So we did a complete walkthrough of the building. They will only cover the cost to put the building back as it was before. So unless it's required by code to improve the building, say it wasn't sprinkled and now it needs to have sprinklers, they would cover that portion. But a low voltage upgrade so that we could have a one-to-one device or something like that wouldn't necessarily be considered in their estimate. That is the $1.5 million amount that they came up with. Now, that is what we call actual cash value. That is what the building is worth right now, less depreciation. It is then up to the owner, CCSD, to determine what we're going to do with that funding. We did use it for emergency repairs, the shoring of the corners to try and mitigate further damage. We did spend about $250,000 of that money. The rest of it is sitting in our property loss claims budget, waiting for direction as to how the rest of that money is going to be spent. Unfortunately, there is not a 90-day provision in that we filed the claim and we worked with them. It would be if we were disagreeing with something that the insurance company was saying, that we had 90 days to augment that information and reach an agreement. But we do have to at least have something initiated within 2 years of the date of loss in order to be able to collect anything that was withheld in depreciation. I can say it's not a lot that was withheld. It was about $200,000.
Go ahead. Brandon, go ahead.
I'm related, but slightly tangential to what she's saying. One of the items I did want to cover as well was there's a discussion around pre-existing conditions and things related to the damage to the storm. A comprehensive modernization strategy was something that the board adopted back in 2019. We do it on all of our projects. Why would we have multiple contractors go in multiple times to disrupt instructional time? So I guess I just want to reiterate that we wouldn't go in there for a smaller amount to fix the flood-related damage and then in CIP in 5 years go back and fix the other conditions. It's tough to extrapolate the two to say it's only, sure we could for a monetary purpose, but we wouldn't segment out, we're only going to fix these related to it. So that's why we have to consider the entirety of the number. We want to go in there once and make the improvements that school needs for the time it needs to function for.
That makes sense. Thank you for that. Trustee Jackson Hill, I hear that you want to. Yes, and there are members who are in the queue, so we'll go ahead and go through the queue first with big members who have been patiently waiting. Trustee Baron?
Yeah, I know it was a long time ago. I don't remember seeing any supporting documents regarding most of these issues. Maybe it was sent to everybody else. I didn't see them. But you know what? I'll tell you what. This is not really a difficult question. Bottom line, Assistant Superintendent McLaughlin, can the existing building be repaired and have a certificate of occupancy issued to it?
Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Trustee Barone. I'm not a building official, so I would have to confer that portion of it, but otherwise my response would be, at the pleasure of the board, if that's the desire of it, we will find a way to make that building be repaired to be operational. But that has to be the desire of the board, not staff's.
So I'm going to take that as a yes, that it can be repaired.
From a feasibility standpoint, yes, I would say in my professional opinion and the professional opinion of those that we hired to do, it is achievable. No one's saying it's not.
Okay, so fantastic. And we've already spent $250,000 to shore up, so I guess it didn't slide down the mountain, even though apparently there is a document out there that says that the building is structurally sound at this point, right? That doesn't exist.
Brandon McLaughlin, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Trustee Barone. The page 53 that's been in question is in the initial assessment report, which said if the permanent drilled piers were installed, they, in their professional opinion, would say yes, it is safe for occupancy. The letter that they clarified to us just today was that statement was predicated on drilled piers being installed, which were not installed. So they would say that it needs to be utilized. Drilled piers need to be installed to make that statement in their initial report true, because that was what it was predicated on.
Are we also saying, for me to understand this, so were those estimates for the drill piers, and I totally get it, where if you have a building that's damaged, that's out of date, I'm not going to say obsolete, because obviously it was definitely being in use when the storm hit. But if we want to bring it up, add one-to-one machines, for the children there, so they can be on par with any other school in the district, right? I would totally understand that we want to add some minor upgrades, short of tearing the whole darn thing down and restarting. But again, these retrofits can occur, number one, and but we have not moved to get an estimate to get the building up and running with these actual piers anchoring here. I'm calling it anchoring, and the restoration of I guess the septic tank. Do we actually know how much it's going to cost to actually get it up and running again?
That's why this motion is on.
Well, you see, that's really unclear, because you're making a motion and you're talking about quite frankly what is it, rentals and stuff, and I don't want to talk about rentals of the building. I want to talk about what's going to cost to actually get the building up and running again.
Yes, and that
and
is
so,
what this motion is. Trustee Baron, your time is up. I know you.
No, please don't try to block me off here. Not at this point here. No, it's not.
Trustee Jackson Hill, you're up. Go ahead.
So I had a question about the insurance, because what was presented to me was that we received a $1.5 million payout. $250,000 went to the cleanup. $500,000 went to the deductible, and I was told there was only $750,000 left in the account for the repairs of the school. So is that typical that the school would be responsible for the deductible?
Board President, Trustees, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Kim Kremlin for the record. The deductible is paid for out of the risk management budget.
Okay, so why was it taken out of the $1.5 million payout that was presented in a document to me?
It never gets paid. It gets deducted by the property carrier before they issue any payments.
Right, but it was taken out of the 1.5 for the school. So if it's paid by risk management, why was it attributed to the school? Why was it pulled out of the 1.5 million? That lessened the fees that would go towards the repairs of the school.
I'm not sure what you received, so I'm
Do you want to
not sure
comment
how to
on that,
answer
Brandon?
that.
Because it's in the,
Brandon McLaughlin, or Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Brandon McLaughlin for the record. I'm not an insurance expert. If I'm to assist my colleague here, it's
it has
common.
nothing to do with the insurance. It has everything to do with the documents that you guys provided to me that gave that breakdown.
Okay, and again, why would a deductible not come out of the payout that the policy covers?
Because if the district is carrying an insurance policy, why would you attribute that 500,000 to the school instead of using your overall district policy? Why would the school have to suffer from you pulling out that $500,000 deductible? Like, it should go to the repairs of the school.
And the school budget did not encumber that funds. And just like if you were to have
But
an
the
insurance
payout
policy.
covered the funds. You deducted it from the payout.
Okay, and if you were to crash your car today, you would have a
You-
deductible, right?
You keep giving me this car analogy.
Wait. Time out. I get to call a timeout. Trustee Jackson Hill, I hear what you're saying in terms of your curiosity, and I would, without having the documentation that you're referring to as part of reference material,
Would you like me to go get it?
What is your question again?
I
What are you asking? Because I don't think that,
I am asking why $500,000 for the deductible was taken out of the $1.5 million that was paid out for the repairs for Lundy instead of the insurance policy or the risk management or whatever pays that out. So if a school burned down and we received $3 million or whatever for that, are we going to take that from the 500, are we going to deduct that deductible from that payout to fix that school?
okay.
Like, is that typical?
How will that inform your decision-making for the purposes of?
Because then that means we have an extra $500,000 that we could use for the repair of the school.
What is that? That's not, that item is not actually up, where the funds will come out of is not part of the discussion. It's our willingness to desire, our
It
willingness to.
determines how much money is available that's attributed to Lundy when we look at the potential cost of the repairs. It's $500,000 more, not $500,000 less.
Out of potentially $6 million?
We don't know that to be the case.
That's why we
because-
have this item. That's why we have this
And
item.
so I would like
Yeah.
to actually amend your motion.
Oh, sure, come on, yeah. What would
Okay.
you like?
So I would like to make a motion at this time to take immediate action to repair Lundy and dismiss the library addition option. And then we can talk about whatever bids or whatever that we need to put in place after the fact so that we can get a hard cost on what it would actually cost to repair the school. But I think that the August vote was to explore a library option. So I think that we need to close the loop on that to repair Lundy, dismiss the library option, and then possibly there's another motion to talk about the bid process, which I think we're not building a new school, we're repairing an old school. So it makes sense that the CMAR option is probably the best option.
So your motion is not different from mine?
My motion is different than yours.
Your motion is to repair the school and to.
Close the library option with none of the fee information that you discussed. I think it needs to be cleaner.
Yeah, I'm happy to add the language. I mean, by default, we're not going to do both schools, right? We're not going to have both Lundy Repair and the Library District by default. I'm happy to clarify that in my motion. And you asked for the CMAR, okay, option, which I don't agree to that, but you're welcome to create your separate motion. the design build is the fastest, would give us an opportunity to get expedited bids and expedite the process to gain momentum to build this school as soon as possible.
We're repairing the school. We're repairing the school. We're not building the school. We're not building a new school. We're repairing the existing school.
It's the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
It's a
It's
building,
not the same
rebuilding.
thing. We are repairing the existing structure.
Okay, rebuilding.
We're not
and
rebuilding.
repairing. Help me understand, we're here, so, what is the distinction in your mind?
So we
regarding
have this
repair?
building. We're not demolishing it and rebuilding it, building it across the street, down the street. We would just be making repairs in this existing structure. Lundy sits on the mountain. It's there. We're only repairing the damages or the pre-existing conditions with the school. We're not building a new school. We're repairing the damage that exists.
Rebuild, okay, got it. Let's see, Trustee Jackson Hill.
Can you put a copy of your motion on the screen so that we can actually dissect it or see it?
I'd like to give you a chance to listen to my motion, and then we will make it work here. Thank you. All right. The motion, there's two things. First of all, before I go into my motion and update it, I want to clarify that this motion, whether it's to rebuild or repair or another is to essentially, we still have to, and our newest members may not know this, but we still have to bring this item to CIP 6. CIP 6, the capital improvement plan, is a presentation that happens to the board. That item will come back to the board, and the board will approve which items will be the construction projects for the following year. CIP 6. Am I saying that right, Brandon?
Brandon McLaughlin for the record. I only want to clarify, the capital improvement plan is the strategic use of how we implement our strategic facility plan. You guys do have the ability to take executive action as the trustees. So I just want to offer that it doesn't necessarily need to go through an additional process if the will of the board is to repair it.
So although we still have to have that presentation, CIP 6 is still going to come before the board at a future board meeting. Dr. Larson-Mitchell?
Madam President, members of the board, for the record, Brenda Larson-Mitchell, yes, CIP 6 will be coming to the board. We have paused that based on what is going to be happening with Lundy, and we knew we did not have District B representation in early September, and so we felt that it was important that District B was represented, and so we have been holding and delaying that to make sure that we have representation from all areas.
Okay, thank you. So my motion, colleagues, I want to capture Trustee Jackson Hill's pieces here. Trustee Jackson Hill, okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve item 2.03 in our current agenda to repair Lundy Elementary School fast with the following conditions. One, ensure that we remove the library addition, which is by default this item, because this item was a reconsideration of that item. So anyways, to super clarify it for us, the library addition will not continue. We will fast track Lundy's repair and include it in CIP, fast track it, period. Included in CIP, ahead of all CIP 6 construction projects. And that there needs to be any additional usage outside of instructional usage for students needs to have a facility, like a facility use process.
No,
Which is
that's
what,
not my
which is
motion.
what every school in Clark County School District has and uses. So that is my support of this item. So I've already restated this item. Trustee Bustamante Adams, are you in agreement with the changes?
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, so I will second that motion to repair Lundy, remove the library option, put it on the CIP 6 construction project, and have our standard facilitated use process.
Thank you. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over. Trustee Jackson-Hale, you want to jump back in the queue for me? Thank you. Trustee Sparsa-Strophican, thank you.
I apologize, community. We wanted to hear you first and weigh in with the staff to kind of get updates. And I just feel like this is not productive. So I want to personally apologize to you as an individual for your time today. So the motion as it stands, Madam President, I would like to ask you to amend the last portion of asking the community to charge individuals to use a school facility, because it's my understanding that school facilities are public spaces and public places can be utilized upon request, utilizing the school district use of facility process. That is already in place. And then when you submit that electronically, I believe, on Philitron, there is often a process that will go through whatever the site administrator will decide in communication with that partner as far as what that potential fee could or could not be. Because it's my understanding that site-based principals have the authority, according to 388G, to waive facility costs. The only cost, in my understanding, would be for the processing of Philitron, which is approximately $25. Is that correct, Ms. Bartholomew, as you're shaking your head?
Yes. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Diane Bartholomew for the record. Yes, you're correct. So Facilitron is a very robust system that we have in place for outside use of the facility. There is a $25 fee. There is a fee structure based on policy 3613 that lays out all the fees.
Yeah.
And depending on the time of day, sometimes you pay for a custodian, sometimes you don't, sometimes you request a police officer, sometimes you don't, so all those fees are laid out. And as you said, the staff administrator of that building has the autonomy to possibly waive, depends on the situation. They can also deny use, depending on the situation. So yes, Facilitron, and it also, for instance, if insurance, it is a robust process that protects the district as well as the user.
And I don't want it to be perceived that we're doing something different for our rural communities that we don't do for the valley. So I'm asking you to please amend your motion to remove that aspect, because it's already a process that's in place.
Oh. Yeah, thank you, Trustee Sparsa-Strophican. Thank you for pointing that out, that it already does exist. So it really shouldn't be a challenge to keep it. I think I'm struggling to, I'll put you back in the queue. Give me 1 second, let me find you. If it already exists, then it should be easy to keep.
So okay, so if the policy exists, it does not need to be in the motion. What we don't want to do is to set a precedent that we are establishing a different process for a rural community. And that could be a litigation issue, so I do not want to go down that path. I'm trying to be fiscally responsible and proactive. So I'm asking you, as the maker of the motion, to remove the last portion. It already exists.
what would satisfy, what's another way we could say this that already exists? Oh. Delete it. I think you're saying delete it. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to continue on with colleagues who are still in the queue. Trustee Cavazos?
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to staff for answering the questions from the community and from the trustees. I feel that we have to concur with those of my colleagues that are saying that we're making this more complicated than it needs to be. I think that Assistant Superintendent McLaughlin stated it the best, and he said that the trustees have not given a clear direction on what to go, and that's why we don't have any bids, if I got that correct. So when we are reconsidering this, we are actually talking about repairing an existing structure, as my colleague Nakia Jackson-Hale has stated, not rebuilding. So when we have a motion that, with all due respect, Madam President, that has so many different moving parts, including parts that are already in policy, I think that, again, we are doing a disservice to the community and to our staff who has worked on this, because they are looking for our direction. If we don't give them direction, then their hands are tied. And I think our community has asked us numerous times, has come down here numerous times. So I think that unless we can get a cleaner motion, which of course can be reflected by our vote, I think that my colleagues right now are attempting to make this motion work by amending it and making it more streamlined and applicable to what we're trying to achieve here. But again, we don't want to make it harder for our staff who has already gone through all this. So I would ask that we try to work collaboratively and in unity to try to get a motion that will work for the community of Mount Charleston, their children, but will also be able to be doable for our staff to be able to implement. I think that we can do that if we really try hard. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you, thank you. Trustee Zamora?
Thank you, Madam President. Just how Trustee Cavazos mentioned, we're giving staff direction. So I want to clarify something because I'm very curious to know how you all define rebuilding and building.
Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Trustee Zamora, the way I interpret the current motion on the floor is that we would repair the existing building.
Thank you. And I just want to make sure, because as there's a lot on the motion, and I want to just make it clear, and I don't want this continue happening, right? We're bringing this back up, and it's just going on and on. So thank you for that.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Trustee Barron?
There are two motions on the floor, and I would like to second Trustee Nakia's motion.
I don't remember. There's a motion by Trustee Jackson-Hale. She didn't capture that. That's in terms of Robert's Rules of Order. There, you don't need to have a motion to amend my motion. It's just simply a request. There's a request. Thank you for that. So,
we haven't followed the process all night.
go ahead, Dr. Larson Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. For the record, Brenda Larson Mitchell. Obviously, I'm not making a motion, but just want some clarity with repair and then how we move forward with the repair, as Mr. McLaughlin gave us the 3 different options, one being a design build. So how we do that. And then if that needs to come back to the board. And what I heard from Mr. McLaughlin is to repair Lundy would not have to come back into CIP 6 because the board can make that decision that it is included in CIP 6. So I just would like that additional clarity, please, so that we can hit the ground running with the direction of the board.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I hear you loud and clearly, and I will make sure that I recapture this motion at the end that includes those 2 pieces. Trustee Guzman?
Thank you. I have a lot of questions because I am very confused. And not confused like I don't know what's happening, like very confused with the fact that we're calling it a rebuild, but it's still in SIP. My understanding of SIP is that we're modernizing our schools. Am I wrong on that?
Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Trustee Guzman. Again, this capital improvement plan is the strategic implementation of our facility master plan, albeit even in an older state. I would articulate that general obligation bonds do not require necessarily approval within the CIP, like every expenditure within bond issuances is not brought in the CIP, though there's budgetary buckets. So I believe it qualifies within that. You would not need to necessarily explicitly carry it into the CIP for a secondary approval. If you guys so desire to make the improvements at the existing Lundy structure, I believe that's within your purview, and as the person who oversees our obligation bonds with our bond fund financial team, I wouldn't look for a
I
secondary
don't think you
approval.
understand my question,
Okay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Further clarify, please.
I'm going to clarify. So, my question is, if we rebuild Lundy, will there be improvements done so that we can have one-to-one? My question is, because in SIP, I've been sitting on this board for 4 years now. Next meeting's my last. And for 4 years, it has been brought to me as a trustee under SIP, all of the improvements that will be done to structures. It's also explained how we move students to different schools, all of that under SIP, right? 4 years. This is what I know. This is why I'm asking. So, when it is said that we are going to rebuild Lundy, are we rebuilding Lundy back to what it was in 2019, or are we rebuilding Lundy in accordance to how we modernize schools? I need to understand what rebuild means in your mind.
Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Trustee Guzman, piggybacking on the answer I provided Trustee Zamora, my interpretation was we repaired the existing structure, and like I alluded to with the pre-existing conditions versus flood damage, I don't want to go in there twice. So my interpretation would be we're going to repair, and we're making the scope of work that makes that school most whole within the price frames and scope we've identified in the assessment reports and everything been articulated to date.
So the motion on the floor, is that how you would have interpreted the motion on the floor?
Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Trustee Guzman, yes, I would have interpreted
Okay.
that just the same.
And so is that what the design build, that makes it just faster? Is that, because that's what you said, you gave us the 3 options, and I am just making sure that when we give direction, it is very crystal clear, so that there is no, hey, I wonder what that means. I want to be very clear. So the design build that she has included in her motion states that we will go faster, we will rebuild, we'll modernize so that the students can have one-to-one, and then Lundy will be upgraded, because it was already a part of the bond and part of bond oversight and all of that in 2019. It was there in 2021 when I sat on the bond oversight committee. So as we're moving along and it's getting closer, instead of having it done in 2028, it'll be done before then?
Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Trustee Guzman, Brandon McLaughlin, for the record. We want this, so I want to clarify, none of this is meant to be a gotcha. We're not looking
Right.
for ways out of this. I'm merely trying to.
No, and I'm not either.
and we
That's
wanna-
why I want to be clear.
And we want to move the absolute fastest on this we possibly can, if this direction so provided is to repair it.
Okay.
So my interpretation would be tomorrow, we're going to strategize as a facility services unit how do we get a design build solicitation out the door like tomorrow?
Yeah.
Would be the intention behind, if that's the desire of the board tonight.
Beautiful. That's what I needed to know. You are amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Jackson Hale?
So I want to go back to the motion because I do think that it needs to be simplified, or we need to vote on your motion up or down and start over so that it's cleaner, just because I do agree with Trustee Cavazos that this needs to be explicitly stated and clean so that we do not have any additional issues with understanding the direction that we want to go. So I think that if we can move forward with that, I think that we can probably get a consensus, and I think that if we can also recommend that the Bond Oversight Committee can play some kind of role in this process for oversight and direction, I think that would be helpful.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Jackson Hale. Trustee Satori?
My apologies, I had accidentally gotten kicked out earlier, so a lot of my questions I had have been answered, and I got back in. And then you may have said this, Brandon, then with the design build, then what do you anticipate the timeline being?
Great question. Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Trustee Satori, Brandon McLaughlin for the record. There's 2 tracks, and so if you recall from the August 7th, there was a to-do bridging documents or not. Bridging documents allows us to go through a 30% design phase to identify a more succinct scope of work. We believe it would be in the neighborhood of $160,000 to $170,000 to develop those schematic level drawings so that we're going out to a design build partner with a more concise scope of work. In this instance, I would say we likely can turn it over to a design builder that will partner their architect engineers with subcontractors doing the work. So 2 tracks. If the desire of the board is to do bridging documents, I would articulate the time frame would be, we would bring that architectural contract to the board as early as January 2025. They would then go through those bridging documents. We would then go through the solicitation for a design builder, bringing their guaranteed maximum price back in August of 2025 to complete the work shortly thereafter. If the desire of the board is to not do bridging documents, which I may recommend within this scenario, we would merely, like I alluded to with Trustee Guzman, we would solicit that opportunity for a design builder immediately, and we would bring a full and actualized guaranteed maximum price back and target April of 2025 for you guys to approve their design build construction contract.
Trustee Cavazos?
I don't know where to start. I don't know where the middle is, I don't know where the end is, and I'd like to go back to the start. I think that we need to have the motion again, read again. Could I get some clarification on whether the rental facility fee was dropped from your motion?
I'm going to restate my motion here in a second. Do you have any other questions?
Okay. Yes, I do have another question. I guess for for Assistant Superintendent McLaughlin. So Trustee Guzman asked for some clarifications, which you gave. So if we were to go with this motion, we are repairing, not rebuilding.
Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Trustee Cavazos, yes. I interpret it as modernization of a scale, as a comprehensive modernization with the scopes indicated, and it's to repair the existing structure.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. I think that's all that I have for now, unless we make another amendment or another change. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, colleagues, my commitment to you is to restate the motion at the recommendation of some members who have specifically asked and reminded me that policy exists, that all schools in CCSD already have the facility use agreement policy and it's executed, that will also be the same for any new builds, for example, and existing schools and or modern schools that are being modernized. So it doesn't matter. All schools already have this and will continue to have this. I just want to be clear that that this is an expectation, and want to state in the record that it's an expectation that all schools utilize the facility, and any groups who want to use the schools that that are our property utilize the facility use agreement to protect the district and people who use it as well. So my motion is to approve item 2.03 in our current agenda, which is, in parentheses, the reconsideration of the item on August 7th. By default, that item erases the library district as an option, okay? So then the motion is to repair Lundy Elementary School utilizing the design build process, which will fast track the repair ahead of all items on CIP 6, and this item will not need to go back to CIP 6 for approval. Trustee Bustamante Adams, do you support this amended motion? Let's see, where are you? Here we go.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, and I do second that motion. I do want to say thank you to the Clark County Las Vegas Library District for indulging us for the hard work that they have put in on our behalf, on our request to try to find options. So thank you to the executive director and the entire board of that body. And so, yes, I second that motion.
Thank you. Colleagues, we have a motion on the floor, and I see some members who are in the queue. Do you have modifications to the existing motion or questions about the motion? Okay, there we go. Thank you. Trustee, is that your, Trustee Satori, you mentioned clarification. Trustee Cavazos, do you have clarification? I agree. No? Do you have a clarification? Just yes or no? Or, okay, got it. Thank you. Dr. Larson Mitchell?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. For the record, Brenda Larson Mitchell. So we just need some clarification regarding the bridging documents, please. Thank you. And I can have Mr. McLaughlin re-share that information.
Yes, please.
Bring it back to the board in January, and then we'll have him tell you the time.
Thank you. I was going to do some wrapping. Okay. Brandon, can you please remind us about the the bridging documents?
Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Trustee Garcia Morales, Brandon McLaughlin, for the record. The bridging documents, I would not recommend within this if the intent is to fast track it. I think that gives us the best opportunity to try to have this operational by 2025, 2026 at the earliest. So that would be the best way to target those dates. If we did bridging documents, it would slip later than that.
Got it. Thank you. All right, let's try this again. Colleagues, my motion is to approve item 2.03. This item is to repair Lundy Elementary School. By default of this motion, we remove the library as an option. We're utilizing the design build process, which will fast track the repair ahead of all items on CIP 6. We will, my motion includes removing the bridging documents, and to clarify, this item will not need to go back to CIP 6 for approval. Trustee Bustamante Adams, as the seconder to this motion, are you supportive of that? Let me turn you.
Thank you, Madam President. I do second that motion.
Thank you. Okay. We've got two colleagues in the queue. Colleagues, after these two individuals go, then I will go ahead and, if there are more people in the queue, I will call a vote. We need to keep it going here. Trustee Cavazos?
Yes, could we include in the motion that it would be opened by August of 2025?
Can you say more about that?
Yes, I'm concerned. I appreciate the additional information from Assistant Superintendent McLaughlin and about the bridging documents and mandating the design build and expediting it, or I think you said fast tracking it. But I just still feel that it's a little bit cumbersome, and I just want to be cognizant of what my colleagues have asked for and to make it as clear as possible so that we do not have to vote this down and then start all over again with another motion. So can we put that into the motion for you and for the person who seconded it, that we are setting a goal, I guess would be an appropriate way of putting it? Would that be applicable? Setting a goal of opening by August 2025.
Dr. Larson Mitchell?
Madam President, members of the board, for the record, Brenda Larson Mitchell. Yes, our intent, based on what Mr. McLaughlin has said, is fall of 2025 with the intent. Things can happen with construction and things can happen with weather and those kinds of things. So I would ask Mr. McLaughlin if our goal, as he said, is fall 2025. That's our intent.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Trustee Cavazos, and Garcia Morales, we certainly endeavor for fall 2025. I don't want to overcommit to you guys that it's absolutely possible. I don't think I'm informed with a general contracting partner enough to make that commitment to you guys. So we can certainly endeavor for it, but I mean, if an HVAC unit that was impacted from the storm is a 10-month lead time, it's going to be difficult. So we need to find additional research, and if a general contracting partner is then signed up, we would have to bring that clarity to you guys at a later date.
Thank you. Trustee Cavazos, did you have some follow-up?
I completely understand where Assistant Superintendent McLaughlin is coming from as far as that things can happen. I just want I don't want this to appear that we're just delaying this and kicking the can down the road again. So I think that if we have some specific goals, and I'd like to defer to my colleague, Trustee Jackson Hale, as far as the language, since she has brought this reconsideration. I understand again that things can happen and do happen a lot of the times. If there can be something that is put in the motion, even if it's, I don't know, a timeline goal or a reopening goal, however, I'm defer to our interim superintendent as far as the appropriate language, but something that is specific for our community so they don't feel that it's kind of going off into cyberspace and we end up here and then we've had another Formula One race and 2 hotels built and et cetera. You know, I'm sorry, a little bit of levity there referring back to some of our commenters, but is there some way that we can do that? And I defer to the expertise of the staff.
I think the staff has already told us that they, that while that is an intent and an aspiration, that there are a lot of factors that are out of the control of staff and even the Board of Trustees. However, maybe we can ask for updates in the future in a public meeting. Are we able to do that, Dr. Larson Mitchell?
Madam President, members of the board, for the record, Brenda Larson Mitchell. Yes, we can update the board and we can also visit Mount Charleston and provide updates to the community as well.
I don't believe that needs to be included in the motion. That is stated here in the public. It's just delaying our ability to make a motion and move forward. So Trustee Jackson Hale. Thank you, Dr. Larson Mitchell. Trustee Jackson Hale.
I would like to reiterate that I would like to have at least that guideline in the motion because it gives us something to work towards. So Assistant Superintendent Brandon said that he could start on this tomorrow. So why would we not put that in there and have that as an aspiration? And we have the regular updates that we can provide the community because we did go from August to May without communicating anything so that they also are reassured that we are serious about about working with this school and getting it back up and running. And I think if you add that, because a couple of people have suggested it now, we will be ready to vote.
Trustee Cavazos?
Oh, no, sorry. Just forgot to turn it off.
All right, colleagues, we have a motion on the floor. The motion has been stated several times. Nothing has changed in the motion. I'm going to go ahead and call a vote. This time we are calling a vote. Thank you, colleagues. Yes. Please, how do we do this? Council, we have an active motion on the floor. Some members have already started voting, and there is a request to restate the motion. Do I need to clear the votes, or can I restate the motion?
You can restate the motion.
Okay, without having to clear it. Got it. Thank you. Just wanted to clarify here, because the motion, as has been said, is to approve item 2.03 in the current agenda, which is, again, the reconsideration of item 2.05 from the August 7th meeting. This item is to repair Lundy Elementary School, with the following understanding that by default of this motion, the item to remove the library is automatically removed from the table of options. We will be utilizing the design build process, which will fast track the repair ahead of all items on CIP 6. We will be using, we will not be utilizing this process will not be using the bridging documents to continue to fast track this item. And this item will not need to go back to CIP for approval. Yeah. I'm still waiting for 2 votes. Colleagues, I hear some deliberation, and I'm not sure that this is. Okay, colleagues, that motion passes 5-1. Thank you, staff.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take a just. All right. We're going to go ahead and move on. Colleagues, will go back to item 2.01. We will give our members of our community a moment to leave the room while we settle in here. All right, colleagues. Item 2.01 is the Debt Management Commission and the Southern Nevada Regional Planning Coalition Representative. This is a discussion and possible action to appoint a member of the board as a representative to the Debt Management Commission and the Southern Nevada Regional Planning Coalition in accordance to NRS 350.0115 and the Southern Nevada Regional Planning Coalition Act, Chapter 489, Statutes of Nevada, 1999 is recommended. And because this is an action item, anybody who does want to speak on this item, please submit a yellow public speaker card. Otherwise, once I finish my presentation, I will take public comment on this item. And then I'll take motion from, I'll entertain a motion from colleagues. Okay. So colleagues, this item is coming to you before the board, because I am currently the member of the Debt Management Commission and the Southern Nevada Regional Planning Coalition. I was elected by the board earlier this summer, and because my term ends on December 31st, that leaves the board without a representative on this commission. And so I put added three items for you to review, actually in reference material. The first is the Debt Management Commission is a NRS that states that the Debt Management Commission's requirements. So under, I guess this is reference material A under 2.01, NRS 350.0115, the creation, composition, selection, and terms of its members, interests, and securities issued by the state or political subdivision prohibit vacancies, right? This is why we're bringing this item before us. You'll see in section C that one representative of the Board of Trustees of the county school district from its membership is our portion, like we are the one representative of the Board of Trustees. And then if you go down further to section 4, the first sentence reads, except as otherwise provided in subsection 1, each representative of a single local government must be chosen by its governing body. And where is this? Oh, here. And then on the second page of reference material A, number 7, which is the back of the first page, page 2, number 7, that last sentence in number 7 says the term of a representative who serves pursuant to paragraph A, B, or C of subsection 1 is conterminous with the term of his or her elected office unless the public entity that appointed the representative revokes his or her appointment. So this indicates that this individual who is appointed to this commission needs to be an elected member. Okay. So from the three, I would ask either for self-nominations or self-nominations. The other thing to note here, colleagues, is that this item, the next meeting that takes place of this commission is January 2nd. Let's see what else. Reference material B includes additional, these are the bylaws of the Debt Management Commission. And again, it states that a member of the Clark County School District Board of Trustees shall be appointed, and each coalition member shall have one vote. They must vote, and this must be parallel with the term of elected office. Okay, so again, those two pieces, and then finally our reference material C, which states that page 3 states that we have a committee on the SNRP, SNRPC, that serves on both. All right, so public comment on this item? No public comment? All right, let's see. Come on up, Christian Kiliani.
Thank you, Christian Kiliani, for the record. I wanted to speak on this because I wasn't sure why it was even on the agenda. You don't have to do an appointment yet. Both, they're not even meeting as committees until next year. And you can survey, I'm assuming, who has interest from your new elected to see who needs to be there. So why you would vote today and then vote again. So I would suggest, with no disrespect, that you table it or postpone it until after the new trustees are sworn in, and then you see who wants to do what work based on their work schedule. Because you all may want to change your meeting time dates. It may affect other people that used to serve on other places. It just seemed kind of cumbersome to me. And a belated thank you very much for listening us tonight. It's much appreciated from the families. I was still confused by the end because I think you should have put a date certain, but staff has said that they'll work with me, and we haven't gone away yet, but thank you very much.
The colleagues, as I shared earlier, the next meeting is January 2nd, and the oath of office is on the 6th. So you would, if this board chooses to delay its vote, it would unfortunately miss out on an important meeting that takes place. And that meeting is required by NRS. Okay. So we'll enter no more public comment. I will entertain a motion and or questions. Trustee Cavazos.
Thank you so much, Madam President. And I just want to get some clarifications here. First of all, with Trustee Brooks's resignation yesterday, we also have an opening we have no representative on the Bond Oversight Committee, and that's also one that has to be approved by the board. So we have not only, the Debt Management Commission, but I also wanted to touch on something that you yourself just said, and I believe it is correct, on one of the pages, that this is a coterminous appointment. So if you are the present member, which we approved a couple of months ago, your term goes through December 31st. And then with the bond oversight, right now, I think you said that it would only be, if I'm not mistaken, that would only be the elected members that would be eligible for this appointment. Is that correct? So that would be Trustee Zamora, and that would be Trustee Irene Bustamante Adams, Trustee Nakia Jackson Hale, regrettably, I'm not going to be here. We're going to have a new trustee. So right now, we have 6 voting trustees on here, but only 3 are elected. So I would like to know if, especially with the resignation yesterday of Trustee Brooks, and we have the other opening, if we could possibly table this, because we're going to have a full complement of 11 trustees in January. And I do realize the point that you're making, and I understand that it is important. You said the next meeting is January 2nd. Not to be unprofessional here, but our previous trustee, I think she attended 1 meeting in 3 or 4 years. And so I think they will be very understanding in January 2nd with our predicament, unless for possibly if I see Trustee Bustamante Adams or Trustee Zamora possibly jumping out of their chairs and wanting to volunteer for this. Trustee Zamora is no. But I'm just asking, could this possibly be tabled until, they are sworn in and we will have a full complement of elected, members?
Sure. This body can do whatever it'd like to. And
possibly add in the bond oversight at the same time, maybe?
The bond does not need to come before the board. That's an appointment by the president. Carrie, did you have something?
I was just going to point out that an appointment to the Bond Oversight Committee is not on the agenda.
Right.
So it doesn't seem to be an issue now.
Okay, got it.
Thank you. Trustee Barron?
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate your previous service, but I would like to make a motion to table this action to January.
Thank you. Trustee Zamora?
Thank you, Madam President. Do you happen to know, before you joined the debt management, what was our attendance rate? No. I would like to second Trustee Barron's motion.
Okay. I have some members in the queue still, so colleagues, will I? Okay. Thank you. We've got a motion on the floor to table this item. Trustee Bustamante Adams?
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to volunteer to serve in the interim capacity until our new team takes their oath of office on January 6th. I think it is very important for our body to be present at the January 2nd meeting. That relationship is critical to our success, and I would be willing to volunteer and attend on January 2nd.
Okay. Thank you. I hear you have a desire to make a motion to volunteer. I know we have a motion on the floor. However, we can take a vote and then go ahead and entertain a motion if there is a need for that. So, Madam President. Madam President, thank you. I see Trustee Zamora in the queue, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Trustee Barron.
Yeah, Madam President, I'd like to amend my motion. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Trustee Bustamante Adams as an interim member of that board until the new board sees fit sometime in January or thereafter.
Thank you.
If that's okay with Brenda.
Trustee Zamora?
Trustee Zamora, so sorry.
Thank you for clarifying that. I will second that motion.
Thank you. Colleagues, we have a motion on the floor by Trustee Barron and a second by Trustee Zamora to appoint Trustee Bustamante Adams in the interim. Can we please call the vote? Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. The motion passes 6-0. Okay. All right. We're going to now move on to item. Where are the items? Item 2.02. That is, this is an action item. The governance professional learning. Let's discussion and possible action regarding governance professional learning and next steps. Because this is a possible action item, I'll need, there are members of the public who would like to provide public comment. Please submit a yellow speaker card. Otherwise, we will just keep it going. I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Bustamante Adams.
Thank you, Madam President. This is the governance professional learning. I want to also invite my colleague, Trustee Esparza Estraffigan, to jump in as well, because she helped to formulate and bring clarity to this. And also interim superintendent, our board liaison, can also add some additional comments if it's your approval for him to come forth also for any clarity questions. So the purpose of the item is to gather consensus on the next steps regarding our governance professional learning. As you can remember, on November 6th, we had the discussion, but it was not an action item, and we did not vote to determine next steps. We did, however, discuss working with the National School Board Association and Dr. Alsbury in his balanced governance solution. It's his proprietary information, and that is why. So ensure that we have clear direction from the board, this team, to the staff. There are two clarifying items. So one, would we like the board liaison to contact the National School Board Association and request a consulting service agreement regarding the facilitation of professional development training of the board, for example, board governance roles and responsibilities, key work of school boards, and governance in general? So that's the question. And if we say yes to that question, to contact the National School Board Association, are we looking to give direction for it to be a one-time agreement, perhaps two-day professional session during the end of January 2025? B, that it could be an ongoing throughout the course of 1 year, or C, we may need to consider two separate proposals depending on the response to the first two questions. So that's one. The second is, do we also want to give direction to contact Dr. Alsbury in his balanced governance solution and request a consulting service agreement regarding the facilitation of professional development, training of the board, for example, school boards and governance in general, and the same questions. A, for it to be a one-time agreement. 2, for it to be ongoing throughout the course of the year. Or 3, maybe consider two separate proposals depending on the response to the first 2 questions. And Madam President, if I can ask Trustee Ramona Esparza again to chime in as well.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee. Bustamante Adams. So I think when we left the last conversation, there was an ask, and I made it public record because of the discussion that followed regarding all of the options for governance training, knowing that we would have new board members and we would be looking potentially to receive some PL for that. So I believe, Mr. Caruso, we asked for your guidance, and you gave us a recommendation to do potentially a request for cost proposal for Dr. Alsbury as one option, but also to consider the National School Board Association if they had any other recommendations. Am I inaccurate in any of those 2? Okay. So that. I'm just refreshing everyone that wasn't present at the meeting. That was the request for a cost proposal to be considered for those 2 options for governance training in the future.
Trustee Bustamante Adams?
Thank you. Thank you. And so thank you, Trustee Ramona Esparza again. So we're looking just for some clarification to make sure that we give staff the direction since it was not an action item. And I would like to recommend that we tell board staff to proceed to contact and get a consulting service agreement quote for facilitation from the National School Board Association and Dr. Alsbury for the balanced governance solution, and then bring back that information to a regular board meeting on January 9th for our review and approval, if so.
Thank you, Trustee Bustamante Adams. Are you ready for members to, before we go into questions or to help you provide clarity, is it okay if we take public comment? Yeah. Okay. Any public comment on this item? No.
Oh, and here she is.
Ms. Binder?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Anna Binder for the record. I have been waiting so many years to hear Mr. Alsbury's name up here. I am throwing a New Year's party in his honor because it's out with the super crabby and back in with some sanity. Thank you so much for this.
All right, I don't see any other public comment on this item, so we're going to move forward. Ms. Gianculiani, you're actually, turn off the mic, please. Thank you. Please turn off this microphone. Thank you. Chris, you don't. It is. Come on. We've heard. Yeah, come on. Come on, come on, come on. Colleagues, with your permission, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to discussion. Trustee Bustamante Adams, I'll leave your mic on in case you want to have discussion or anything of that nature. Answer questions. Trustee Cavazos.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm very happy to see this item brought back. I think it would have been helpful. We don't have any reference materials on this. I do understand what the intent of the item was, but it would have been helpful to maybe just have the materials kind of spelled out here. So just to clarify, we are looking for a specific direction to Mr. Caruso to contact those 2 entities, NSBA and Dr. Thomas Alsbury, and to basically put out an RFP. Is that correct?
I wouldn't call it an RFP. I know you might think that it might be similar, but it would be a consulting service agreement, which does have some different.
Okay, I'm going to defer to Mr. Caruso.
Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell. Trustee Cavazos, to your question, so I reached out to purchasing. We kind of, and I say this respectfully, we kind of had a couple different conversations at the last meeting, so I appreciate Trustee Garcia Morales, Trustee Bustamante Adams asking me to work with Trustee Bustamante Adams, Trustee Esparza Stoffergan to kind of get clarity tonight. We do not need to go back out to do an RFQ. So I want to read to you, this is from our Director of Purchasing. So if the board has someone in mind, an RFP and RFQ would not be necessary unless you're open to other solutions. Really, the two groups you talked about at the last meeting were the National School Board Association and Dr. Alsbury. Now, if that's not the case and you wanted to do that, then we would open it up and potentially see who's out there. In this case, the $50,000 threshold is the trigger for competitive procurement. That's not in play here because we don't know obviously what the cost is. Even if it was over the $50,000, there is an exemption in NRS 332 that allows professional services to be procured without competition. So if that's the case, then we know the board, if it's the pleasure tonight, wants to go with NSBA, National School Board Association, Dr. Alsbury, then we can move forward and get the consulting services agreement. It's a draft. It's something you would look at as reference. The reason we don't have reference tonight is because we did not, you as the board did not take action at the last meeting. It was left to bring it back in January. The challenge is if we wait till January 9th to bring it back to vote to say go forward, now you're pushing it to February for governance training. And I think that Trustee Esparza Stoffergan said in her last meeting, we need to get this in place so we can start fresh in January. So hopefully I answered that, not too long-winded, but
No,
answered your
it wasn't
point.
long-winded at all. I appreciate that. But I did have some questions from other entities asking why there wasn't, and they probably were not here or watching that previous meeting with the discussion and being able to distinguish why we would not need to put out that outside bid. Thank you.
Madam President, if I may, one thing to clarify too, remember balanced governance is trademark. So balanced governance is Dr. Alsbury. So we have to be very mindful of that. So when we wrote this, it's governance professional learning. So that's where National School Board Association can come in and say, hey, we're going to do governance professional learning. But if you're going to do Dr. Alsbury, that's who we contracted with and worked with in 2016 because he's trademark bound. That's his company. So we have to be careful when we say balanced governance because, again, he is, and that's why when we did the RFQ in 2020, the board made that decision to go with him. So hopefully that provides additional insight.
Thank you. Trustee Zamora?
Well, thank you, Madam President. Quick question. Are we members of NSBA?
Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Joe Caruso for the record. Great question. So in speaking with our Nevada Association of School Boards, we are a member of the Nevada Association. I do not believe we previously were a member of the National School Board Association, but I believe we have not as a board brought that back to renew. Typically that's something that the board would commit to do, so that could be something that we could research as well.
Thank you, because that was my follow-up. Who makes that decision for us to become members? And I don't know if you might know this, Joe, or not, but do you believe that if we were members, if we were to reach out to them for quotes, basically, would it be a difference if we were non-members versus members?
Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Joe Caruso for the record, Trustee Zamora, to your point, I think that in the conversation with NSBA could be clarified, is there a different rate? I do know that they will be at the Nevada Association of School Boards Conference this week, and Dr. Alsbury will be there as well. So if the pleasure of the board is to research both, I will intend to corner them both and say we need to talk and try to get some clarity. But I do think since the state association is realigning with the National School Board Association, and we fall under that umbrella, it might be a good conversation to bring back to the board. I do remember in 2016 attending the National School Board Association conference with former trustee Garvey, at the time, and I think that appetite then, so maybe something to revisit and bring back.
Thank you very much. And to Trustee Bustamante Adams, was that an official motion you had made about reaching out to both of them?
You can make that, yes, short answer, yes, I would like to make the motion to our board liaison to contact both and bring back the consulting service agreement as an agenda item for our regular board meeting on January 9th for review and approval by this body.
I would like to second that motion.
Thank you. Colleagues, I believe we still have, okay, nope. Okay, thank you. All right, colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Bustamante Adams, a second by Trustee Zamora. Please cast your vote. Thank you, colleagues. That motion passes 6-0. We are now going to move on to public comment on items not listed as action items on the agenda. This is a time to submit your yellow public speaker cards. Otherwise, once we begin with the individuals who signed up in advance and then go through yellow cards, we will no longer take yellow public speaker cards. Scott, thank you for your patience. Come, woo woo, woo woo. Let's leave.
I've seen this on YouTube so many times. It's always so viral.
Sure. Yeah.
I promise not to be viral, but I hope I'm memorable.
All right, let's do this.
All right. Now I'm going to make some screw ups, so don't judge me too harshly. Good evening, Madam President and Board Trustees. My name is Scott Kunkler, and I'm here to discuss with you the current tardy policy at Durango High School and how it affects me on a weekly basis. Now, if you're not familiar with the Durango tardy policy, it goes something like this. It is exclusive to Durango High School. It's not countywide. It's not any other school. But if you have a son or daughter that shows up to school on Monday morning and they are 2 minutes late, 1 minute late, 5 minutes late, doesn't matter. Late is late. If you're late Monday morning, your parent has to subsequently come into school to the attendance office on Tuesday, sign a waiver acknowledging that lateness. If that does not happen, Durango's policy is to put that student in study hall from 7 a.m. till 1 p.m. in the day. That student receives no proctoring. He's given his Chromebook, his assignments, and go for it. It's your job. Now, my son's a C average student at best. Now, if you're an A student, you might be able to make that work. But my son needs the proctoring, the teaching. He doesn't need to sit in a study hall being bored all day long. So Monday, after I had driven 100 miles back and forth to Durango High School twice because my son had forgot his Chromebook, and then prior to Thanksgiving, he was tardy. So they put him in an in-house suspension, even though I had been there an hour earlier. I had made the drive back to Lake Las Vegas, 25.4 miles. And by the time I got there, I got a text from my son saying, hey, they just gave me back my Chromebook. Are you still on property? No, I'm back home. All right, never mind. Well, as a parent, you know that's a red flag. Like, what do you mean, never mind? What's going on? I'm in suspension. What? I was just there. Doesn't matter. You didn't sign anything. So I frantically start calling the school over and over. Unless your name starts with superintendent, you're not going to get anybody on the phone at Durango High School. Forget about it. So I make the drive back to Durango High School. Now I've driven 75 miles. I was able to get, I'm going to run out of time. I was able to get one person on the phone, but then I was hung up on. I get to the school. I actually moved 4 feet over from the place I was an hour earlier, giving my Chromebook away, to sign a little waiver saying my son can get his education now. I then asked to talk to leadership at Durango High School. I was met by Miss Elizabeth. Not Mrs. Elizabeth, not Elizabeth, but Miss Elizabeth. She corrected me 3 times so that I got her title correct. All right? Seeing that the conversation was going to go south, I wasn't going to continue this. Then she started to challenge my son's age and his value of his education. I left. I went back home, called Clark County School District, asked them about what my course of actions could be. They reckoned to me that I had to follow the chain of command. Am I done?
Scott.
Does anybody want to
thank you.
donate their time to me?
Scott, no. Scott, wait. Scott.
This is a great story, because you haven't heard about how many people told me that
Scott.
this school board meeting doesn't even exist.
Scott, please stay with me for just 1 second, okay? I'm sorry that this happened to your sweet family. And while your time is up, there's two things that I want you to know. One is that if you would like to provide written public comment, we will make sure to include that in the record of the rest of the remaining of your story. And I already see Melissa Gutierrez, thank you, to your left, who wants to speak to you. She has come off the dais to support and try to help you find a solution. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. All right, who's up next for public comment? We had a really great system earlier.
Chris.
Oh, all right, Chris, you're up. Chris, come on up, please.
I don't want to be caught in the middle. Chris Giunciliani, Madam President. As you talk about your governance that you were just talking about on the previous agenda item, I think you sorely, sorely need to either be trained on parliamentary procedures and Robert's Rules of Orders, or you have a parliamentarian sitting here, with no disrespect. And it's not easy. Brenda is a licensed parliamentarian. I used to do parliamentary work as well. And so I think for whoever's coming in, you have to know the procedures, how you make a motion, how you amend a motion, who gets in, so you don't get into it with each other. You don't want it to be personal at that point, okay? So that's just part one. Part two, I have noticed over probably last year that you constantly have closed door sessions. Do you know you're violating the open meeting law every single time you do that if you don't have it on an agenda and you don't post what the subject area is and it has to say 241 or 281 or discussing the character of an individual? Otherwise, you're not allowed to do that. And you put everybody at risk if somebody's not telling them you're violating the open meeting law. Now, I can't believe that that has not been informed to you all at this point, but I think you should look at a minimum at the Attorney General's checklist that they have for how you go about this. But what was your meeting about today? It doesn't exist anyplace. We don't know that you're meeting in secret. A closed door session is not called because Lola Brooks resigned. It's not called because blah, 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 blah. It's called for 241, 281, sorry, or thank you, 288 and 241, or if you're discussing the character of an individual. That's it. So whomever's going to advise you next year, because your previous person wasn't there and you're new for as far as I know, they need to advise you. And I may be looking, I am going to be requesting, I guess I have to do it through a FOIA, all your closed door meetings that you've had this last year and who were in attendance so that I can add it to my complaint. Thank you.
Anna Binder?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell. So I don't know what's going on with assistive technology. My son was approved for a device last school year, and it's almost Christmas, and he still doesn't have that. It's a communication device for a nonverbal autistic child. And so far this school year, I've had 3 other families reach out to me because their nonverbal Down syndrome children, also who were previously approved for devices, still, as of Christmas, don't have their devices. So if I'm going through it, and I've only heard from 3 families, we have almost 40,000 SPED kids in the district. So how many kids are not getting their devices? We're also noticing an uptick in transitions, like when kids are moving high schools, going from elementary to middle school to high school, that there's, like, I thought this is what case management did, was kind of follow those things and make sure that they were there when the kid hit the new school. That's not happening at all. It unfortunately caused one of my wonderful children and their families to undergo another arrest because you have a student on campus who cannot verbally communicate and you have adults in the building demanding things of them, and they might be deaf and hard of hearing and can't even understand what they're being told. So if somebody could just kind of like look through that process and find out what's going on, but the kids should not be deprived of their communication devices. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. I believe that concludes public comment. We're going to now move on to item 4.01. That's the upcoming meeting of the Board of Trustees on Thursday, December 12th at 5 p.m. Here in the boardroom. It's not just yours, not just yours.
Oh, but it feels like it.
Come on, okay, it's yours. It's all yours, Trustee Guzman. It is all yours. I will, yeah, turn it over to you. All right, colleagues, I'm now looking for adjournment. Trustee Guzman.
I move to adjourn this meeting.
Woo. Thank you. Trustee Zamora. Oh, sorry. Here we go.
Okay. Thank you, Madam President. I will second that motion.
Thank you, Trustee Zamora. Colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Guzman, a second by Trustee Zamora. Please cast your vote. Thank you, colleagues. That motion passes 6-0. Have a great night.